Chapter 162. The pressure was so dense that even the air seemed to have turned into mud. The further he went, the greater the pressure. In just a short period of time, Wang Chong felt the pressure increase exponentially. "Young Master Wang, please. We've arrived at the Taiji Palace." At the same time, the voice of the head eunuch came from the front. It was calm and emotionless. "Don't." A finger lightly knocked on the wall of the carriage, and the door opened by itself. A ray of light shone through the door, but it was silent outside. An invisible tension filled the air. Wang Chong held onto the sides of the door and climbed out of the carriage. Lualulu, the carriage rumbled. Almost at the same moment that Wang Chong walked out, the palace eunuch drove the carriage away. After the carriage left, Wang Chong's eyes lit up. A majestic golden palace stood tall in front of him, as though it was in the clouds. At the four corners of the huge palace, there were 4 golden armored generals with disdain in their eyes. They were like gods guarding the 4 corners, guarding the huge palace in the center. The 4 golden armored generals exuded a storm-like pressure. Huge, brilliant, and resplendent halos shot out from beneath their feet, making the hall look like a kingdom of gods. The Emperor's dragon guards. A thought flashed across Wang Chong's mind. Dragons had their guards, and so did the Emperor. The 4 golden armored generals were the most mysterious of the Emperor's dragon guards. Legend had it that each of the Emperor's dragon guards was a Saint Martial Realm expert, and each of them possessed a secret technique of the royal family. They were the Emperor's most loyal servants and subordinates. The immense pressure that Wang Chong felt before came from these Saint Martial Realm Emperor's dragon guards. Taking in a deep breath, Wang Chong calmed his mind and raised his head. Nearby, he could see a white jade stairway winding its way up to the massive golden gate of the palace. From afar, Wang Chong saw a few majestic golden words in front of the palace. Taiji Palace. Wang Chong muttered to himself as he recognized the handwriting. Each of these 3 words weighed more than 1,000 catties. Just by looking at them from afar, one could feel the heaviness in one's heart, as if a huge mountain was pressing down on it. The residence of the Son of Heaven, the great ultimate temple. This was the first time Wang Chong had seen Taiji Palace with his own eyes. It was also his first time seeing the center of this world. At this moment, the most famous holy emperor of the entire Tang dynasty in Middle-earth was only inches away from him. Wang Chong couldn't help but feel excited. Once upon a time, meeting the greatest holy emperor of the Tang dynasty was Wang Chong's greatest wish in his previous life. But at that time, Wang Chong was destined to miss this wish. Now that everything had started all over again, Wang Chong finally had the chance to fulfill his wish. Being born in this world, how could one not know the supreme ruler of this world? Whether it was prosperity or decline, he was the architect of all of this. If Wang Chong wanted to fulfill his mission and change the fate of this world, he couldn't avoid this supreme ruler of the Tang dynasty. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. Just as Wang Chong was in a daze, a sudden clap of thunder seemed to explode in the air, and a loud voice resounded through the world. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. Summon Wang Chong into the palace. As soon as his words fell, the echoes reverberated in all directions. His loud and clear voice resounded everywhere. Wang Chong's mind shook, and he finally came back to his senses. Stepping onto the white jade stairs, he walked step by step toward the majestic, towering Taiji Palace that seemed to be above the clouds. The pressure on his shoulders overlapped and followed him like a shadow. With every step Wang Chong took, the pressure on his body increased, and even his footsteps became exceptionally heavy. The Emperor's dragon guards. To get close to the Holy Emperor, one must first pass through the Emperor's dragon guards. The white jade stairs were the steps of the Emperor. Without a strong will or an extremely strong cultivation, one would never have the chance to meet the Emperor. In the past, countless people had been stopped on this white jade stairs. In his previous life, Wang Chong had already missed the chance to meet the Emperor. This time, Wang Chong didn't want to miss it. Tut, tut, tut. The entire Taiji Palace was quiet. Aside from Wang Chong, there was no one else. The world was quiet, and the sound of footsteps echoed throughout the world. Time passed slowly. In Wang Chang's perception, the Taiji Palace in front of him was like a huge storm. And the closer he was to the storm, the stronger the pressure. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead without him realizing it, but Wang Chong was unaware. This was a white jade staircase with thousands of steps. Wang Chong had never walked such a long staircase before. It was so long that it felt like countless centuries, with no end in sight. Sweat flowed out without him realizing it, even drenching his clothes. The pressure on his shoulders also overlapped, as if there were layers upon layers of huge mountains. Wang Chang's essence was constantly depleting, and his stamina was constantly weakening. His feet felt like they were filled with lead, making them extremely heavy. To Wang Chong, this short journey felt like a lifetime. But after some time, bzzz. Wang Chang's mind trembled as the world around him suddenly changed. An energy that caused the world to change color, solemn, dignified, and vast, suffused with a supreme aura, erupted in front of him and engulfed the world. Wang Chang's mind trembled as he suddenly snapped out of his daze. Only then did he realize that he had unknowingly reached the end of the white jade staircase. In front of him, a majestic and divine golden hall stood before him. In this hall, Wang Chong sensed an inconceivably powerful aura. Although he had already restrained it, the aura he emanated was still so powerful that it made one's heart tremble. In his previous life, Wang Chong had experienced countless battles of blood and fire. He had experienced countless trials of life and death. His will had long been tempered to become extremely tenacious. However, in front of this aura, Wang Chong could not help but feel a deep sense of reverence. It was as though he was facing the heavens and earth. Before this aura, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority. In that instant, Wang Chong couldn't help but fall into a daze. Some distant memories, like dregs, suddenly floated up in his mind at this moment. Inexplicably, Wang Chong once again recalled that controversial topic in his future life. In the world of the Tang dynasty, in the Central Plains, who was the true #1 expert? In the apocalyptic era, was he the one who received orders to turn the tide and become the Grand Marshal of the Central Plains, leading the last soldiers of the Central Plains to battle against the foreign cavalry for 10-odd years, and ultimately slaying Kong Yaoyuan? Or was he the one who fought against 10,000 alone, and in the final moments of his life, he valiantly killed tens of thousands of foreign invaders? Or was it someone like his master, the demonic Emperor Old Man, who, though unknown in the imperial court, had shone brightly in the martial arts world, becoming an invincible expert who dominated the world? Or was he the unfathomable, snow-white, and unprepossessing holy monk from the Uzun Plateau? In an instant, countless famous figures that Wang Chong knew flashed through his mind. But in the end, they were all denied by Wang Chong. In this world, if there was one person who could suppress everyone else and be called the world's undisputed #1 expert, then Wang Chong believed that this person could, and it could only be one person. The supreme and unfathomable Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven, of the Tang dynasty. Wang Chong deeply remembered that those seniors who helped him to the position of Grand Marshal had once said that if the Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven, of the Tang dynasty was still alive, if the greatest emperor in the history of the Central Plains was still alive, if that was the case, this war might turn out to be a completely different situation. Because in the history of the Tang dynasty, the Holy Emperor, the Son of Heaven, was the only one who had managed to reach the divine martial realm and survive. The difference between the holy martial realm and the divine martial realm was like the difference between heaven and earth, between man and God. The two were incalculable. Most of the experts in the holy martial realm did not have the qualification to reach the divine martial realm even at the end of their lives. Among them was Wang Chong of the previous generation. There were various opinions about the Son of Heaven's attempt to reach the divine martial realm in the Tang dynasty. Some people said that the attempt had failed. But Wang Chong had personally heard those seniors say that they had indeed felt the aura of the divine martial realm from the Holy Emperor. Therefore, whether the Holy Emperor's attempt was a success or a failure, or a half-success or a half-failure, no one would ever know. Judging from the time, it should have happened not long ago. Wang Chong raised his head and murmured in his heart. Wang Chong had once hated and complained about the holy emperor of the Tang dynasty. But in the end, when he walked to the front of this Tai Chi palace and was very close to the holy emperor of the Tang dynasty, Wang Chong found that in the end, there was only respect left in his heart. Perhaps he had made many mistakes, perhaps he had single-handedly caused the destruction of this empire. But in the end, what Wang Chong remembered was still the founder of the prosperity of the Tang dynasty. At the same time, he was also the most proactive and enterprising pioneer in the history of the entire Middle Earth. The doors of the Tai Chi palace were wide open. Wang Chong took a deep breath and, against the mountain-like pressure, stepped through the doors of the Tai Chi palace. Rumble. The moment he stepped through the doors, the world shook. It was just a single step, but Wang Chong felt as if he had stepped from one world into another, from another space to another. In an instant, Wang Chong felt a powerful aura, an existence that was much more powerful than himself in his previous life. A supreme existence that was even more unfathomable than So Yung-sun and the evil emperor. In an instant, the whole world seemed to fall silent. In Wang Chong's world, there was only that unreachable figure. Wang Chong greets the holy emperor, the son of heaven. Chapter 163. The entire Taiji palace was silent. Wang Chong could feel a pair of dignified and disdainful eyes looking down from above, piercing through the void and landing on him. From this gaze, Wang Chong could only feel one thing: unfathomable. Since ancient times, accompanying a sovereign is like accompanying a tiger, and the might of the heavens is unfathomable. Wang Chong could not sense any emotion from this gaze. He was also unable to fathom what the son of heaven of the Tang dynasty was thinking. In the silence of the palace, Wang Chong remained kneeling on the floor, unmoving. In the silence of the palace, Wang Chong could hear his own heartbeat. After an unknown period of time, which felt like an instant, but also like countless centuries, Wang Chong finally heard an authoritative and thunderous voice. Wang Chong, I heard that you are opposed to my regional commander's system and the Hu system? The voice was indifferent, devoid of any emotion. Wang Chong's heart trembled. When a subject submitted a memorial, he had to answer it. However, the Holy Emperor's words weren't easy to answer. On a smaller scale, Wang Chong was only expressing his opinion on the Holy Emperor's words. On a larger scale, Wang Chong was opposing the Holy Emperor. Yes. Wang Chong hesitated, but he still replied. Speak. That voice spoke calmly, authoritatively, and majestically. Yes. Wang Chong lowered his head and replied respectfully. The air in the palace churned, and a gust of wind blew in. Wang Chong's heart began to tremble along with this gust of wind. For some reason, the words Big Uncle Wang Zhen had said on the carriage echoed in his ears once more. The more you speak, the fewer mistakes you'll make. The less you speak, the less mistakes you'll make. If His Majesty asks, you must answer. If you know, you must say that you know. If you don't know, you must say that you don't know. If you know, you must only say that you know. You don't understand politics, so you don't know anything. It's my first time meeting the Emperor. I don't want to be meritorious, but I want to avoid making mistakes. This matter concerns our entire Wang clan. It's not just you and your father, but me, your big aunt, your little uncle, and everyone else. You mustn't be reckless. Remember this. These words were the culmination of Big Uncle Wang Zhen's decades of experience. Even though it sounded slippery, it was the best advice for an inexperienced scion like Wang Chong. The more you speak, the more mistakes you will make. The less you speak, the less mistakes you will make. Entering the palace to meet the emperor was no small matter. With the Wang clan's current status, they no longer needed Wang Chong's help in this matter. As long as he didn't make any mistakes, everything would be fine. It was just that. Thinking back to his previous life, Wang Chong couldn't make himself remain silent. The Jidushi system and the Hu system were the root causes of the chaos in the Tang dynasty. Now, he finally had a chance to meet the Holy Emperor and have a chance to remonstrate with him. If he missed this opportunity, he would never be able to forgive himself for the rest of his life. At this point, Wang Chong hesitated no more. Your Majesty, The Jidushi system and the Hu system are the root causes of the chaos in the Tang dynasty. This policy must not be implemented. In the next moment, Wang Chong kneeled on the ground and recounted his thoughts in detail, even including the words he had used to persuade the elders in the Four Quarters embassy without holding anything back. No one knew better than Wang Chong how dangerous the Jidushi system would be in the future. Wang Chong knew that this was an opportunity for him to change history. Your Majesty, the Hu have formed their own faction. The Hu protect the Hu, and the Hu promote the Hu. Once this precedent is set, it will surely bring disaster to the Tang dynasty. Your Majesty, please reconsider. After saying those words, Wang Chong kneeled on the floor, not moving in the slightest. These words came from the bottom of his heart, and they were Wang Chong's true thoughts. Those who had never experienced that chaotic era would never be able to imagine it. To Wang Chong, the words he said to his grandfather and the Holy Emperor weren't just a possibility or a prophecy. They were a reality that would happen in the future. However, other than him, no one else in the Central Plains knew of it. Even more so, no one knew that the fate of the empire rested on a single thought of the Holy Emperor. The hall was silent, devoid of any sound. After an unknown period of time, Wang Chong finally heard a voice. I understand. You can leave now. When you return, write a memorial of what you have just said and submit it to me. This was the third and final sentence that Wang Chong had heard since entering the Taiji Palace. Yes. Wang Chong was taken aback, after which he bowed and left the hall. Who? Beneath the white jade steps, a gust of wind blew, and Wang Chong's entire body turned cold. Only then did he realize that even his shoes were wet. Accompanying a sovereign was like accompanying a tiger. The pressure in the Taiji Palace was simply too great. In there, every step Wang Chong took was even more difficult than a major battle. But this wasn't what Wang Chong was concerned about. I wonder if His Majesty has listened to me? Recalling what had just happened, Wang Chong's heart was filled with worry. Wang Chong was in a daze. Even when he came out at the end, Wang Chong didn't know whether he had succeeded or failed. He wondered if His Majesty had listened to him at all. Accompanying a sovereign is like accompanying a tiger. In the entire hall, Wang Chong had said quite a bit, saying everything that needed to be said. But from the moment he entered to the moment he came out, Wang Chong had only heard 3 sentences. Wang Chong, I heard that you oppose my regional commander's system and the Hu system? Speak. I understand. You can leave now. When you return, write a memorial of what you have just said and submit it to me. Just based on these 3 sentences, Wang Chong couldn't tell whether the Holy Emperor was delighted or furious. He couldn't tell whether he had listened to what he had said or not. Furthermore, what was the meaning behind the other party's request for him to write a memorial? Wang Gongzi, please. A familiar voice sounded. Wang Chong snapped out of his daze and saw a golden carriage parked not too far away. A eunuch stood by the side, and it was the head eunuch who had escorted him into the royal palace. The heart of a sovereign is truly unfathomable. Wang Chong sighed as he lowered his head and entered the carriage. The carriage left the royal palace, and eventually, Wang Chong was sent to the Wang family residence. Not long after returning to the residence, Wang Chong wrote all of his thoughts, as well as his thoughts on the financial system, into a memorial. That very night, Wang Chong's memorial was sent to the royal palace along with the head eunuch. After doing all of this, Wang Chong tossed everything aside and began to cultivate the complete version of the little yin-yang art. Panglong. A single stone raised 1,000 ripples. Wang Chong had never imagined that on the very next day, his memorial would appear in the imperial court and be circulated to all the officials, causing a huge uproar in the court. Preposterous! Wang Zhen, is this the opinion of your Wang clan? Your Majesty, this humble subject wishes to impeach Wang Zhen and that Wang Chong. That day, in the royal court, Imperial censor Zhou Zhang suddenly bellowed furiously and grabbed Wang Zhen's beard. What? In an instant, a huge commotion broke out in the royal court. No one had expected Zhou Zhang to make a move before so many people. Lord Zhou, let go. Zhou Zhang, what are you doing? How dare you act so audaciously before the Son of Heaven? The officials surrounded Wang Zhen and Zhou Zhang tightly, and the situation was chaotic. But before the first wave subsided, another wave rose. At the same time that the officials surrounded Wang Zhen and Zhou Zhang, Wang Zhen and Zhou Zhang were stunned. In the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the ground shook violently, as though a meteor had crashed into the ground. Amidst the crowd of officials, a tall and sturdy figure knelt heavily on the ground like a falling jade pillar, prostrating himself in worship. Your Majesty, this humble subject Wuxia has made great contributions to the Tang dynasty. I am loyal and devoted to you. Your Majesty, I beseech your Majesty to uphold justice for this humble subject. Following Wuxia's words, thud 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 thud. The officials in the royal court knelt down like wooden pillars. In the 200-odd years since the establishment of the Tang dynasty, the Hu and Han had lived together. Not only were there Han officials in the royal court, there were also Hu generals. Wang Chang's memorial caused all of the Hu generals in the royal court to kneel with their heads facing the Holy Emperor. In an instant, the originally noisy imperial court fell into a deathly silence. All of the officials stared at the kneeling Hu officials, speechless. Only Wang Zhen stood in the royal court, his clothes in disarray. Looking at the kneeling Hu officials, his face warped in shock. But this wasn't the end of the matter. Voila! Countless pigeons, kites, jays, eagles, and eagles flew out from the capital. There had never been a day when so many birds flew out from the capital. The birds that were transmitting messages blotted out the sky and covered the sun, covering the entire sky. Upon seeing this sight, even the elders who had lived in the capital for decades were dumbfounded. Preposterous! 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 In the Qixi governor's manor in the rear of the western regions, a blue-eyed, bearded Hu with a domineering aura bellowed in rage. I have contributed greatly to the Tang dynasty while guarding the western regions. How dare a brat humiliate me like this? How hateful! He deserves to die. Hong Long, the green-eyed Hu raised his palm, and with a loud boom, the metal table in front of him shattered into pieces. The immense force caused the ground to tremble, and a huge cloud of dust burst out of the governor's manor, rising nearly 100 zhang into the air. The Hu form their own faction, the Han promote the Hu, and the Hu promote the Hu. Feng Changqing, aren't you a Han official? This brat is spouting nonsense, he deserves to die. In the vast desert of the western regions, a 5,000-strong armored army was on the move. At the very front of the army was a beautiful and handsome general with an aura that was as vast as the mountains and as vast as the seas. He looked no different from a Han, but the Xinlua jade token by his waist revealed his identity. He was the Anxi Vice Protector General, Duke of Miyun, Gao Xinji. He was the only Xinlua Vice Protector General in the entire Tang dynasty, as well as the highest standing of the Xinlua people in the Tang dynasty. In the military world of the Tang dynasty, he wielded unparalleled authority. Anxi Vice Protector General Gao Xinji was known for his elegant bearing, and even when he was angry, he maintained a calm expression. However, Gao Xinji raised his right hand, and with a crack, the neck of a warhorse broke. Without any warning, it suddenly fell to the ground, motionless. Chapter 164. In the new city bordering Uzan and Longyu of the Tang dynasty, a valiant general with a pair of eagle eyes and a tall nose harumphed coldly as a piercing glint flashed across his eyes. The Big Dipper rises high in the sky, and Geshu Han carries his saber in the night. In the western border of the Tang dynasty, there was no one who didn't know of the Big Dipper General Geshu Han. Dressed in golden armor and carrying a long saber by his waist, he was the Big Dipper General Geshu Han. There were many generals in the Great Tang Empire, but there were very few who could be called great generals, and had a status above the other generals. As the vice commander of the Big Dipper army, the Big Dipper General Geshu Han's standing was unimaginable. A memorial submitted by a 15-year-old youth had stirred up a storm in the royal court, shaking the entire royal court. It was impossible for Geshu Han to be unaware of such a huge matter. In truth, he had been standing on the city walls for a very long time with the news delivered by a messenger pigeon in his hand. Another repeat of the events in Yet another commander of Cheng. Damn it. Geshu Han's face steeled as he gripped the letter tightly. Back then, during the reign of the previous emperor, Geshu Han's mother passed away, and he lived in the Tang dynasty for several decades, admiring the elegance of the Tang dynasty. When his mother passed away, Geshu Han learned the customs of the Han and observed mourning for 3 years, but he was mocked by a lowly official in the capital, commander of Cheng. He said that the Hu learned the customs of the Great Zhou, and that they were nothing more than monkeys. Geshu Han was extremely filial to his mother, and he viewed this matter as a great humiliation. It was precisely because of this that Geshu Han threw away his brush and joined the army. And now, Wang Chang's memorial reminded him of that lowly official in Cheng. Boom. Cold, killing intent flashed across Geshu Han's eyes. Boom. A burst of flames burst into the air, reaching a height of more than 10 zhang, and incinerating the letter in Geshu Han's hand. In the 200 years of the Tang dynasty, there were innumerable Hu. Wang Chang's memorial had incurred the wrath of countless Hu. Wang Chang's memorials flew in from all directions like snowflakes. This would have been fine, but Wang Chang's memorial had not only enraged these people. Qi Shi Protector General and Anxi Protector General Fuming Lingmeng, Vice Protector General Gao Xianji, Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, Biding Vice Protector General and Sishun, these Hu great generals all held influential positions in the Tang dynasty. When the angry memorials of these Protector Generals, Deputy Protector Generals, and Great Generals appeared in the court of the Tang dynasty, the nature of the matter instantly changed. Even Wang Zhen's face paled. The impact of this matter far exceeded his expectations, and he was in a state of losing control. Not only that, the Hu had been vassals for so many years, and this had affected not only the Hu, but the Han in the royal court as well. Many of the imperial censors did not dare to attack Duke Jiao, so they targeted the 15-year-old Wang Chong. In an agitated tone, they said that Wang Chong was ridiculing the court. Some of the other officials were even more agitated. They said that Wang Chong and the Wang clan harbored malicious intentions and intended to divide the Han and Hu against each other. This was detrimental to the Han, and they demanded that Wang Chong punish them severely, even including Wang Chong's big uncle Wang General. Many people had not expected this matter to develop to this extent. The consort Taijin incident had only affected the civil and military officials of the royal court, as well as the local officials. Its influence was limited to the Han. However, Wang Chong's memorial pushed the regional commander system and the Hu into a corner, dragging all of the Hu and their border generals into the mix as well. In terms of influence, this matter had far surpassed the consort Taijin incident. Deep in the night, all was quiet. While many people in the capital were still sleeping, the Wang family residence was brightly lit by candles. "Chong, you can't. You have to hide for a while." In Wang Chong's study, Big Uncle Wang Zhen was pacing back and forth, his hands behind his back. His eyes were sunken, and there was a faint green tint to them. It seemed like he had not rested for a long time. The regional commander system and the Hu great generals have already far surpassed the expectations of you, me, and the old master. The repercussions of this matter are too great. These imperial censors are not only going to interrogate you and me, they are even planning to impeach the old master. Wang Zhen's anxiety was undisguised. Only he himself knew how much pressure he had been under in this period of time. Gao Xianji, Fomen Linta, Geshu Han, and Sishun, these esteemed Hu great generals had not only sent memorials to the court, they had also sent him letters of criticism. Wang Zhen was an important official of the court, and his status was definitely not low. But these people, not a single one of them had a lower status than him. Only the heavens knew how much pressure Wang Zhen had been under when all the Hu great generals' letters of criticism had arrived at his residence. And this was only a small part of it. Every morning, those imperial censors and Han generals who sympathized with the Hu would surround him, either cursing or impeaching him. Even his court robes would be torn. In his decades in the court, Wang Zhen had encountered all sorts of political storms. But this time, it was completely different. Wang Zhen could smell an intense danger. They dare. Behind his desk, Wang Chong clenched his fists in fury. He already knew everything, including the torrent of curses from the Hu and the censors accusing him of interfering in court affairs. From today onwards, the Tang dynasty, the Central Plains, and all the Hu, including him, would be irreconcilable enemies with the Wang clan. The Tang dynasty had been established for more than 200 years, and the Hu had already infiltrated every aspect of the country. Now that Wang Chong had offended these people, it was easy to imagine how his future would turn out. But regardless of whether it was the wrath of the Hu generals or the censors, Wang Chong wasn't afraid of them. Wang Chong only felt grief and indignation. He was impeaching the Hu. The regional commanders system and the Hu system had always been beneficial to the Hu. Anyone who opposed these two policies would be harming the interests of all Hu. Wang Chong wasn't surprised at all that he would incur the scolding and questioning of so many Hu. What Wang Chong was truly concerned about were the Han who supported the Hu and opposed him. Blinded by a single leaf, unable to see Mount Tai, stuffed with beans in one's ears, unable to hear the thunder, that was right. Chi Kuan Healy was indeed a loyal official. Ashina Shi-er had also contributed greatly to the Tang dynasty. These two were good Hu officials under Emperor Taizong, but who was the one who fought against Emperor Taizong? The Han? It was the Hu. Who was the one fighting against the Tang dynasty to the north of the Yin Mountains and west of the Tsong Mountains? Was it the Han? It was the Hu. It was the Yuzin's men. Regardless of the era or space-time, there would always be some people who forgot their identity and sympathized with their enemies more than their own people. They could easily put themselves in the shoes of their enemies and sympathize with them. But it was only towards their own people that they were exceptionally harsh. They would often berate and criticize coldly, saying that they didn't see the big picture, didn't understand etiquette, and lost the demeanor of a great country. Divide the Han and the Han? Pit the Hu and the Han against each other? Was there a need for him to create a conflict between the Hu and the Han? Wasn't this already the truth? Wouldn't it be these who would incite a rebellion and tear apart the Tang dynasty in the future? Wouldn't it be these who would govern the military towns in the future? Never overestimate the loyalty of the Hu. This was the lesson that Wang Chong learned from his previous life. When the Tang dynasty was at its peak, they were willing to serve the Tang dynasty. But when the Tang dynasty fell, don't expect them to be willing to serve the Han to the death. Instead of thinking about how to protect themselves, they were willing to relinquish their authority to the Hu, allowing them to fight for them on the battlefield and protect them. How foolish and laughable was that? Might makes right. Regardless of which era it was, any people who didn't understand this principle deserved to die. Chong, this isn't the time to let your emotions affect your decisions. You have to find a way to hide. Try not to show yourself in this period of time. Wang Zhen said solemnly. Hide? Where can I hide? If the censors were to impeach me and the royal court summons me, how can I not go? Wang Chong said calmly. Seated behind his desk, his expression was calm and fearless, as if he had already thought through everything and made all preparations. Looking at the composed Wang Chong, Wang Zhen felt an indescribable emotion welling up in his heart. Once upon a time, he had always treated Wang Chong as an immature 15-year-old child. Thus, he had always treated Wang Chong harshly, often reprimanding him. Even after Wang Chong schemed against the Yao clan, Wang Zhen still felt that he was too young to bear such great responsibility. But at this moment, Wang Zhen suddenly realized that while Wang Chong might still be young, his heart had already matured into that of an adult. Even he was unable to maintain his composure regarding the regional commander's incident and the Hu matter, but this nephew of his, as the instigator of all of this, was actually able to maintain his composure, even coldly stating the unavoidable truth to him. This was something that even he was unable to do. Chong, you've finally grown up. At this moment, Wang Zhen couldn't help but sigh. Not even he realized that at this moment his view of Wang Chong had greatly changed. Unknowingly, Wang Zhen had begun to view him as a trustworthy peer who he could discuss things with. Chong is right. I also feel that he has no way of avoiding this matter, nor can he avoid it. A voice came from the side. Wang Chong's little uncle, Wang Mi, was seated by the side, a contemplative look on his face. He had rushed back yesterday. With such a major incident happening in the Wang clan, It was impossible for him not to return. At this sort of time, it was always better to have another person to discuss things with. But he didn't understand the matters of the court, so he couldn't interfere in the conversation between Wang Chong and his older brother. But instinctively, Wang Mi felt that what Wang Chong said was correct. "Chong, I hope that little uncle feels that you were too rash in this matter. In truth, you didn't have to write that memorial at all." "Impossible. I had to write that memorial and I had to write it this way." Before little uncle could finish his words, Wang Chong interrupted him. Wang Chong wouldn't regret this matter at all. There were some things that one had to do regardless of the price, even if one knew that it would be filled with thorns. Once he did it, Wang Chong wouldn't regret it. Sigh. Wang Mi and Wang Zhen sighed deeply. He had even stopped a carriage along the way to persuade Wang Chong to enter the royal palace, but he didn't think that Wang Chong would still go through with it. Furthermore, it was done in a way that he didn't expect. But what was done could not be undone, and even the old master had agreed to it. There was nothing Wang Zhen could say about it. Just as they were in the midst of their discussion, a loud bang sounded from outside. It seemed like someone had barged in. The trio in the study raised their heads. But before they could stand up, boom. With a resounding boom, the door to Wang Chong's study was smashed into pieces by a powerful force. Before the shocked gazes of the trio, several chamberlains of imperial insignia barged in from the door. "You are Wang Chong?" The few of them stared at Wang Chong coldly as they spoke impassively. "I am." Wang Chong was bewildered. He couldn't make sense of what was going on. "Very well. Wang Chong, you've been arrested. Come with us." The chamberlains of imperial insignia said coldly. After which, they stepped forward and grabbed Wang Chong from both sides, ready to leave. "What?" Wang Zhen and Wang Mi were shocked. At this moment, Wang Zhen saw the token hanging on their waists. It was a black prison character. They were the prison guards of the royal palace. "Wait a moment. What crime are you arresting him for? In the annals of the Tang dynasty, you dare to arrest someone who has never committed a crime." Wang Zhen bellowed furiously. "How dare you interfere in the affairs of the royal court?" One of the royal guards took out a golden order to detain him. "This is a warrant from the royal court. There are the signatures of the Minister of War, Minister of Punishments, Prime Minister, and Censor. More importantly, there's also His Majesty's seal." "What?" Wang Zhen's body trembled. Looking at the dragon's seal on the warrant, he felt as though he had been struck by lightning. He couldn't believe his eyes. "Lord Wang, you are an important official of the royal court. I hope that you won't obstruct the royal court's decision to detain a serious criminal. Otherwise, don't blame us for capturing you as well and throwing you into the imperial prison." The final words of the royal guard left even Wang Mi dumbfounded. Imperial prison? Not the Bureau of Punishments? Not the Court of Judicial Review? And the imperial prison of the royal palace. Wasn't that a place where only criminals on death row were locked up? Wang Mi was dumbfounded. But the prison guards didn't fall into a daze. They sealed Wang Chong's acupoint and dragged him out of the room. In just a few moments, they had already disappeared from sight. A long time later, a sorrowful cry sounded from the Wang Chong residence. At this time, it was daybreak. Chapter 165. In the inner courtyard of the imperial palace, the dragon drum and dragon bell rang together. The news of Wang Chong's arrest and imprisonment spread. Before the morning court session began, an old official with white hair appeared in the inner palace. His hair and beard were all standing on end, his whole body was trembling, and his face was full of grief and indignation. His white head kept banging against the dragon drum and bell, causing blood to flow out. There has never been a precedent of disrespecting the imperial court. Your Majesty, are you going to set a precedent and be punished for your words? The old censor banged the drum and bell again and again, his expression incomparably furious. As an old minister of the previous dynasty and an imperial censor during the reign of the late emperor, Ting was loyal and devoted. He admonished the late emperor with a straight face and once received the imperial elixir edict iron voucher. It was just that he was getting on in years and was now over 70 years old, so he resigned and returned home. He hadn't been involved in politics for 30 years, and he didn't expect something like this to happen. Hearing about Wang Chang's matter, the old imperial censor was incomparably furious. Almost as soon as he received the news, he ordered his children to prepare their court robes, took the previous emperor's Dan Shu iron voucher, opened the city gates, and went straight to the inner court. This has never happened in the 200 years since the founding of this dynasty. If His Majesty were to be punished for this matter, he would definitely be an incapable ruler. The impact caused by Wang Chong was far more than that. When the bell rang in the morning, all the civil and military officials rushed in. Your subject, Xianxia, requests Your Majesty to release Wang Chong. Almost as soon as they entered the hall, one of the ministers fell to his knees with a thud. Then the second, the third, the fourth. Your subject Lu Lin requests Your Majesty to release Wang Chong. Your subject, Su Hanwu, requests Your Majesty to release Wang Chong. Subordinate Sun Taija beseeches Your Majesty to release Wang Chong. I, Gu Tong, request Your Majesty to release Wang Chong. Each of the ministers had a solemn look on their faces, and their expressions were filled with anger. Xianxia, Lu Lin, Su Hanwu, what are you trying to do? This scene caused Xiao He and the others to be flabbergasted, all of them stunned. However, right after Xiao He finished speaking, something even more shocking happened. This official has a complaint against Xiao He. I, Li Yunlin, wish to lodge a complaint against Lu Yu. Your subject Zhang Song wishes to lodge a complaint against Zhou Ju. I, Lu Feng, would like to lodge a complaint against Zhang Gray. Your subject, Zhou Renren, wishes to present a copy of Great General Abusi's book. Thud, thud, thud. The figures knelt down heavily like wooden stakes. Even Great General Luo Busi was stunned by the last sentence. The large imperial court suddenly fell silent. Xiao He and the others did not know why, but when they saw the furious gazes that were directed at them one after another, Xiao He and the others vaguely understood something. They suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. Rejection. A strong rejection. For the first time, Xiao He felt like they were being labeled. For the first time, Xiao He tasted the feeling of being ostracized by the civil and military officials. When Wang Chong said that the Hu formed their own faction, these officials initially did not believe it and even felt that it was not a big deal. But this time, so many Hu generals had submitted a joint petition. How could Wang Chong be wrong? Gao Xianji was from Xinluo. Fomin Linta was a Chang. Geshu Han was from Tuki. Abusi was from Tongluo. And Sishun was from Turkic. But this time, for the sake of dealing with Wang Chong, these different Hu were actually willing to work together. All of the Han officials were infuriated. And when Wang Chong was captured and thrown into the imperial prison in the early hours of the morning, his rage reached its peak. The Hu formed their own faction. Was there even a need to say it? Initially, everyone was still disapproving of Wang Chong's petition. But now, who would dare to think that way? The most hateful thing was that as the imperial censor, Xiao He and the others were actually speaking up for an outsider. An outsider was detestable, but an insider was even more so. Xiao He and the others did not know that they had already been marked with the symbol of a foreign tribe. Right now, anyone who spoke up for the Hu would be the enemy of all the Han officials. The entire imperial court was silent. Other than Xiao He and the other Hu generals, all of the Han officials kneeled down, refusing to budge. Your Majesty, Wang Chong is only a 15-year-old child, and he has a patriotic heart. If he were to be punished for his words, wouldn't the people of the world be disappointed? I beseech Your Majesty to look into this matter. When Duke Su and the other dukes, whose standing wasn't beneath Gao Xianji, kneeled down, the atmosphere in the imperial court reached a boiling point. These words didn't just represent Duke Su's words, it also represented the thoughts of all of the officials kneeling here. The entire imperial court was deathly silent. Standing amidst the crowd, Wang Zhen looked at this sight with a myriad of emotions in his heart. Chong, did you see that? Initially, Wang Zhen felt that Wang Chong didn't listen to his advice and wrote the petition. But at this moment, Wang Zhen felt that Wang Chong's actions were the right choice. That morning, when more than 80% of the officials kneeled down to plead for Wang Chong, the news shook the entire imperial court. The Wang family. Release me, release me. When the news that her brother Wang Chong had been captured and thrown into the imperial prison spread, the Wang family's little sister flew into a rage. 4 guards, 8 servants, and 6 maids couldn't hold her back at all. One of the guards was sent flying, crashing heavily into the wall, causing it to collapse. Wang Xiaoyao's innate strength wasn't something that an ordinary person could withstand. Let me into the palace. How dare he capture my brother? I'll kill that dog of an emperor. The Wang family's little sister bellowed furiously. Young mistress, you mustn't say such words. If others were to hear such words, they would surely kill you. All of the guards, maids, and servants paled upon hearing those words. How could such words be spoken so casually? If word were to spread, the Wang clan would be punished with confiscation. In an instant, 6 to 7 hands reached for the Wang family's little sister's mouth, and even more guards rushed forward to surround her and press her down. Not too far away from Wang Xiaoyao, Madame Wang was seated on a wooden armchair. If she had heard the Wang family's little sister spouting such outrageous words in the past, she would have long slapped her. But at this moment, Madame Wang sat there motionlessly, tears flowing down her cheeks. Madame Wang had witnessed Wang Chong being captured, and from then on, she hadn't had a single drop of water to drink. Have you sent anyone over to the old master's residence? Madame Wang suddenly asked. I've been there. The doors of the 4 Quarters embassy are tightly shut, and it's impossible to enter at the moment. The guard lowered his head, and his expression was extremely gloomy. In an instant, despair flashed across Madame Wang's eyes. As a woman, there was nothing she could do. She could only pin her hopes on her father-in-law. But for some reason, the doors of the 4 Quarters embassy were tightly shut all of a sudden, such that even her big brother couldn't enter. Madame Wang had no idea what was going on. The only person she could think of who could save Wang Chong was her father-in-law. If even her father-in-law was helpless, then she really didn't know what she could do. Madame Wang wasn't the only one despairing. What should we do? Should we inform young master's master of this matter? In the corner of the room, Xianxia suddenly thought of the evil emperor. It's useless. This is a matter of the royal court. Besides, his martial arts have been crippled, so there's no need to disturb him. Xianxia's suggestion was rejected by Meng Long without any hesitation. He wanted to save the young master as well, but this wasn't a viable solution. At the same time, in the backyard of the Wang family residence, a gray-robed middle-aged man sighed deeply. Li Zhuxin was hired by Wang Chong at a cost of 5,000 gold taels. He had once promised to ensure Wang Chong's safety. However, this matter was truly beyond his capabilities. On the wall not too far away from Li Zhuxin, Mayasame Ayaka was squatting silently with her head lowered. She seemed to be in low spirits. Although they were all top-notch experts, they were also helpless in this kind of situation. Under an old locust tree in the west of the city, So Yongsun sat upright with a golden chessboard placed before him. From dawn till dusk, the other side of the golden chessboard was still empty. So Yongsun still didn't see the figure he was waiting for. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard. The old servant Fang Hong hurried over and whispered into So Yongsun's ears. Hearing Fang Hong's words, So Yongsun's eyelids twitched, and his face warped in shock. A gust of wind blew past, and the locust tree fell silent. So Yongsun sat beneath the old locust tree with his eyes closed. A contemplative look appeared on his face. No one could tell what he was thinking. It seems like I won't be able to play today. After an unknown period of time, So Yongsun slowly opened his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he tidied up the black and white stones on the table and placed them back into the box. Then he picked up the golden chessboard and slowly walked out. "Grandfather, you must save Big Brother." So Yongsun had barely taken a few steps when a figure suddenly pounced over and hugged So Yongsun's ankle, bawling loudly. Su Zhengchen turned around, and the first thing he saw was the teary-eyed little Jian hugging him. He had always been fond of candies, but at this moment, The candied haw had fallen to the ground and was thrown to the side. Did you hear that? So Yongsun said. Fang Hong's voice was already very soft, but this child's ears were sharper than his. Grandfather, Big Brother once said that you are formidable. Big Brother isn't a bad person. You must think of a way to save him. Xiao Jianjian bawled. So Yongsun fell silent. He gazed at Xiao Jianjian beneath him and sighed deeply. Then he slowly pulled his leg out and disappeared into the night. The darkness of the night didn't calm the atmosphere in the capital. Instead, it grew more and more agitated. Wang Chong's arrest had already surpassed the scope of the Wang clan and the memorial that Wang Chong had written. The Hu generals, vice protector generals, and protector generals had jointly accused Wang Chong, as well as Wang Chong's imprisonment. As time passed, the rage didn't subside. Instead, it only grew more intense. After the court session ended, innumerable petitions flew into the inner palace, requesting for Wang Chong's release. This was no longer a matter that concerned Wang Chong alone. It was a storm between the Hu and Han. As night fell, countless messenger pigeons flew in all directions, revealing that more than 80% of the Han officials had knelt down to plead for Wang Chong. This matter immediately triggered an even more intense reaction among the Hu by the borders. The rage of the Han didn't make the Hu compromise. Instead, it incited even greater fury among them. Bastards! What are the Han up to? In the Qixi Protectorate manor, Fomenlinta flew into a thunderous rage, and the entire ground trembled in response to his rage. Their hearts are cold, but aren't we cold as well? We who have bathed in blood on the battlefield for the Empire, and yet we have to suffer the humiliation of a brat. If I don't kill that brat, I won't be able to quell the hatred in my heart. I will write a blood letter to the Holy Emperor. That brat must die. Let's see if His Majesty will choose that brat or us Hu generals. Memorials from the Anxi Protectorate Manor, Qixi Protectorate Manor, Anbei Protectorate Manor, the Big Dipper Army, and many other Hu generals by the borders flew into the capital like snowflakes. This time, it wasn't just Gao Xianji, Fomenlinta, Geshu Han, and Sishun, and hundreds of Hu generals. Furthermore, unlike the first impeachment, all of the memorials this time were requesting for Wang Chong's death. If we don't kill that brat, we won't be able to appease the anger of the soldiers. If His Majesty doesn't kill that brat, the hearts of the Hu will turn cold. These were the most frequent words in the memorials of the Hu generals. More than 80% of the officials submitted a memorial to plead for Wang Chong. This matter infuriated all of the Hu generals. They were no longer calling for the impeachment of the Wang clan and Wang Chong, but for Wang Chong's death. When the Hu generals' memorials requesting for Wang Chong's death arrived in the capital like snowflakes, they had no idea that this matter had already attracted the attention of another faction. Bastards! Do they really think that the Tang dynasty belongs to them? Do they really think that the Tang dynasty only has Geshu Han, Fomenlinta, and Gao Xianji? Chapter 166. If we don't get rid of this brat, we won't be able to vent the anger in our soldiers' hearts? What do these who think they are doing here? Are they trying to claim credit for themselves just because they have made some contributions? By the side of the raging sea, a few warships were parked. War flags fluttered in the wind, and 2 words were written on them: Fubo. By the side of the warship, a black-bearded general looked at the news with an awful expression. Pass down my orders. Write a memorial to the emperor. Whoever dares to instigate the execution of Wang Chong will be an enemy of our Fubo army. Ha! Laughable! 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 These fellows actually dare to threaten His Majesty? Looks like that child is right. These who are a faction of their own. I would like to see if the words of our Han clan or those barbarians are the ones calling the shots in the Tang dynasty and the Central Plains. On a hill in the darkness of the night, a muscular general looked at the letter in his hands with a livid expression and roared furiously. Pass on my orders. Write a memorial to the imperial court, travel 800 miles at top speed, and travel day and night without rest. Whoever dares to touch Wang Chong will be killed by me, Luan. My southern garrison army will protect that Wang Chong. Similar incidents were happening all over the Central Plains. In the history of the Tang dynasty, there had never been a case of so many Hu generals requesting the execution of a single person. Similarly, there had never been a single matter that could incite the wrath of so many Han generals in the Tang dynasty. That night, when the Hu generals' memorials were flying toward the capital, hundreds of Han generals' memorials were also flying toward the capital with blazing anger. The clopping of hooves resounded in the darkness. While the entire Tang dynasty was in chaos due to Wang Chong's matter, the underground of the Tang dynasty's royal palace was serene and silent. Not a single piece of news was able to reach this place. A soft groan, low and lonely, echoed in the gloomy prison cell. After some time, Wang Chong finally moved. Wang Chong was awakened by the sound of water dripping. In the dark underground, the sound of water dripping was especially loud. It hurts. Wang Chong scratched his head, and all he could feel was dizziness. The golden guards of insignia were extremely heavy-handed. That blow on his sleeping acupoint was definitely not just a light tap. Where is this place? Wang Chong shook his head and slowly got up from the ground. This is the Imperial Prison. A voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Don't tell me you still think we're in some brocade tent? This sentence immediately caused a burst of laughter. Imperial Prison? Wang Chong shuddered, as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him, and he suddenly sobered up. It was dark and damp, and a few torches glowed on the walls. Wang Chong glanced around and finally saw clearly that this was a prison cell. It was a prison cell with a long history, and the pillars of the cell were stained with blood. It was a prison cell that sent chills down one's spine. Even the air here was cold. A black fog floated in the air, and the dense aura of death left one shuddering. Imperial Prison? Imperial Prison! In that instant, countless thoughts flashed across his mind. Slowly, as though coming to a realization, Wang Chong calmed down and sat on the floor. Imperial Prison? Imperial Prison. I didn't expect this. In that instant, Wang Chong finally came to a realization. Everything that had happened before he fainted surfaced in his mind. Wang Chong only saw the golden guards of insignia entering, but he didn't expect them to be prison guards of the royal court. A single memorial actually angered the royal court and the Hu, resulting in him being sent to the imperial prison. This was something that Wang Chong didn't expect. The imperial prison was a place where prisoners on death row were kept. Few of those who entered would be able to walk out alive. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. At this moment, Wang Chong finally calmed down. If I live and die for the sake of the country, how can I avoid it because of misfortune or good fortune? If this is my fate, if the great Tang is destined to perish, then let the perishing begin with me. Sitting on the floor, Wang Chong's heart was beating furiously. There was no fear of death in his eyes, only deep sorrow. He had nothing to fear about death. If he coveted wealth, he wouldn't have submitted this memorial in the first place. Wang Chong only felt sorrowful. If no one had reminded him of the regional commander's system and the Hu strategy, it would still be understandable. But even though he had tried his best, and even his grandfather and big uncle had stood up for him, this was still the outcome. This made Wang Chong feel deeply defeated, dejected, and even sorrowful. Look at that new lad. He's petrified. He's actually sitting there motionlessly, as though he's made of wood. The surrounding prison cells burst into laughter. But Wang Chong just sat there motionlessly, as though he didn't hear anything. The laughter grew louder and louder, but it eventually died down, as though it was boring. Wang Chong sat in his prison cell, motionless. After an unknown period of time, rumbling footsteps suddenly sounded. Wang Chong's heart skipped a beat, and he abruptly raised his head. A stern-looking middle-aged man, who had the air of an official, led 6 or 7 imperial prison guards with powerful auras and storm-like auras as they strode in from outside. Clang, clang, clang. The candlelight flickered, and the steel bars in front of Wang Chong clanged loudly. The cold-faced prison official stood in front of Wang Chong, staring coldly at him with an incomparably sharp gaze. "You're Wang Chong." The prison official glanced at the token in his hand and said. Wang Chong didn't deny it. Since you are, tell me honestly. The prison official said coldly and harshly. Tell me what? Wang Chong finally raised his head. Presumptuous. You're already here, but you're still so stubborn. If you didn't commit any crimes, would you be here? You'd better tell me honestly, lest you suffer. The prison official raised his eyebrows and stared at Wang Chong, looking extremely displeased. I don't know what crimes I've committed, and I have nothing to tell you. Wang Chong said calmly. This kid is still stubborn. Kid, this is just a routine interrogation. You'd better tell me quickly, lest you suffer. There's no one here who doesn't tell you the truth. That's right. Trying to act tough in front of Lord Zhou, aren't you courting death? Lord Zhou has at least 100 ways to make you talk. The surrounding prisoners burst into laughter. The prisoners looked at Wang Chong with disdain, as though they could already see Wang Chong suffering. This prison official, Zhou Xing, was a ruthless official. In his hands, there wasn't a single person who wouldn't have their flesh torn apart. Even if they were made of steel, they wouldn't be able to endure it. He had hundreds of ways to torture others. Being stubborn in front of him would only lead to suffering, and the gains would not make up for the losses. Shut up! A ferocious roar reminiscent of a lion's roar echoed. In an instant, all of the prisoners fell into silence. The imperial prison was isolated from the world, and in here, Zhou Xing was the living King Yama. Everyone's life and death rested in his hands. No one dared to resist him. Have you really thought it through? Is there nothing to say? Zhou Xing stared at Wang Chong with a terrifyingly dark expression. Wang Chong shook his head, his expression calm and unperturbed. Very well. This is your first time here, so you don't know the rules. I'll give you a few more hours to think it through. If I still hear the same answer when the sun rises, I will be very unhappy. As he spoke, Zhou Xing didn't even bother concealing the threat in his eyes. At the end of his words, Zhou Xing made no attempt to conceal the threat in his eyes. Anyone who dared to defy him would have to suffer. If anyone dared to defy him, they would have to suffer a lot of physical pain. Zhou Xing led the prison guards away. After Zhou Xing left, countless sympathetic gazes turned toward Wang Chong. After Zhou Xing left, countless sympathetic gazes turned toward Wang Chong simultaneously. The last time Zhou Xing had such a gaze, 3 people died in the imperial prison. The last time such an expression appeared in Zhou Xing's eyes, 3 people had died in the imperial prison. An old prisoner looked at Wang Chong and sighed deeply. An old prisoner looked at Wang Chong and sighed deeply. But Wang Chong was oblivious to all of this. He sat cross-legged on the ground. His heart was like still water, without any movement. Amidst this silence, time trickled by slowly. After an unknown period of time, all Wang Chong heard was the sound of water dripping for 21,600 times. It felt like an eternity, and finally he heard familiar footsteps. The sun has risen. Wang Chong sighed. Opening his eyes, he saw Warden Zhou Xing and a few prison guards standing before him. But unlike the first time, Zhou Xing didn't say a single word this time. He just stared at Wang Chong with a bizarre expression, as though this was the first time he was seeing Wang Chong. You're Wang Chong? Zhou Xing tilted his head and asked. The same words, the same person, but the feeling it gave off was completely different. I am. Wang Chong was flabbergasted, but he still spoke in a voice as calm as before. The moment Wang Chong said those words, Zhou Xing's expression suddenly turned bizarre. It was a little surprised, a little confused, and a little fearful. Wang Gongzi, I apologize for offending you last night. Suddenly, Zhou Xing bowed deeply. In an instant, all of the prisoners who were waiting for Zhou Xing to arrive with his torture equipment were dumbfounded. What was going on? Zhou Xing was known for his ruthless methods. Why would he bow to a new prisoner? Everyone was dumbfounded, and their minds couldn't process the situation at all. You fellows, hurry up and prepare Wang Gongzi's meal. Can Wang Gongzi eat the food here? Zhou Xing kicked away his rice bowl as he bellowed at the prison guards beside him. After which, he turned to look at Wang Chong cautiously. Wang Gongzi, the imperial prison is damp. I'll arrange it for you, spread the blankets, and clean it up for you. A person like you shouldn't be here, and you shouldn't be cuffed. However, it's the will of the heavens, so I hope Gongzi can forgive me. Zhou Xing sneaked a glance at Wang Chong and said fearfully, "What in the world happened?" Wang Chong couldn't help but ask. "Gongzi, please forgive me for not being able to tell you." Zhou Xing hesitated. After cleaning up the spoiled rice bowl, Zhou Xing didn't dare to stay any longer and left hurriedly. Only by investigating the matter would he know what kind of person he had locked up. In Zhou Xing's life, he had been locked up in all sorts of important officials. Be it a 9th rank or a 1st rank, an insignificant official collecting 5 buckets of rice, or a famous general in the royal court, Zhou Xing didn't care about any of them. In the imperial prison, there were only prisoners. And all of the prisoners had to listen to him. But the young man before him was too unique. In Zhou Xing's life, he had never met with such a situation. Even though he was a high official, he wasn't a general or a minister. However, he wasn't someone whom his small prison could lock up. Zhou Xing had intended to torture him, but after the incident in the royal court, he didn't dare to do so even if he was 100 times bolder. Such a person wasn't someone he could afford to offend. From dawn to noon, one group of golden-armored prison guards after another passed by Wang Chong's cell with all sorts of titles. Other than during torture, it was rare to see these prison guards here. But in a single day, the prisoners here had seen at least 30 to 40 royal guards. Everyone was trying their best to assess Wang Chong. Their gazes were filled with shock and fear. But none of them said a single word. After staying for a moment, they left hurriedly. The curiosity of the people in the prison cells grew. No one could understand what was going on. Even more so, they couldn't understand the background of this beardless young man. Chi. After an unknown period of time, when another group of prison guards passed by, one of them flicked his finger lightly, and a crumpled piece of paper immediately fell on the ground in front of Wang Chong. After they left, Wang Chong suddenly walked over and picked it up. Unfolding the crumpled piece of paper, Wang Chong took a look. With just a single look, Wang Chong's face immediately warped. From the moment he entered the imperial prison until now, this was the first time Wang Chong realized that the world outside the imperial prison had been turned upside down. Chapter 167. The memorials from the Hu generals requesting for Wang Chong's death had incited an unimaginable fury in the Han army. Everyone was enraged. The next morning, when thousands of memorials piled up in the royal court, all of the officials were frightened stiff. These memorials came from all over the border, and every single one of them was stamped with the seal of a general. Every single one of them was filled with rage. When hundreds and thousands of generals surrendered at the same time, that kind of enormous pressure was unimaginable to ordinary people. In the history of the Tang dynasty, there had never been such a situation. 4,000 of Han generals to side with a single person, speaking up for a single person. But Wang Chong had done it. Anyone who dares to instigate the death of Wang Chong will be my enemy. Such vehement words appeared in almost every single one of the memorials. Even though the words used were different, the meaning they conveyed was the same. Furthermore, there was no hint of compromise. Not only so, the hundreds of memorials from the Hu infuriated the entire Han army. For the first time, the Han generals as a group displayed their will. This wasn't just reflected in the memorials from the royal court, it was also reflected in their rage toward the Hu generals. Thousands upon thousands of military memorials flew toward the Hu generals by the borders, carrying the rage of the Han generals. All of the Hu generals who had impeached Wang Chong and demanded for Wang Chong's death received military memorials from the Han generals. Similar memorials also appeared before Gao Xianji, Fomin Linta, Geshu Han, and Sishan, and the other top-notch Hu generals. This matter had a huge impact on the Hu generals. This was the first time they felt the might of the Han generals. At noon, when a document, signed by 100 generals, appeared in the court, it added fuel to the fire and pushed the influence of the whole matter to the peak. The generals who appeared on this letter were no ordinary generals. They were the conferred generals of the Tang dynasty. From the Qin to the Western Han, only those generals with exceptional status and unique contributions could obtain a unique title, and they were known as conferred generals. The weight of these people was far greater than that of ordinary generals. General of suppressing waves, general of ships, general of destruction, general of 9 cauldrons, general of 10,000 crossbows, general of the sea, general of pacifying barbarians, general of the south, general of sweeping north, general of southern dipper, general of dragon cavalry, general of charging vanguard. These conferred generals were scattered all over the world. But because of Wang Chong, these generals were able to gather everyone's signatures within a single day. This was simply inconceivable. When almost all of the famous generals of the Tang dynasty appeared on this letter, the weight of this 100 generals' letter could be imagined. In the letter, the 100 conferred generals vouched for Wang Chong. At the same time, they questioned Geshu Han, Gao Xianji, Fomin Linta, and Sishun, and the others. How many Hu and Han generals were there in the army? There were 300,000 Han soldiers by the border, but only 100,000 or so Hu soldiers. The Han far outnumbered the Hu, and if a Han soldier were to die in battle, the central army would be able to send in reinforcements. But in the border, were the ones speaking the Han or the Hu? In the border armies, which were mainly made up of Han people, were there more Han generals or Hu generals? There were many things that, once revealed, would be completely different. The conflict between the Hu and Han had been going on for a long time. Anxi, Qixi, Biding, and Longyu, which Geshu Han was in charge of, were all mainly Han. Their weapons, bows, arrows, rations, horses, and artillery were all supplied by the royal court. The commanders of these 4 important military forces were all Hu, and they were all under the control of the Hu. This matter had already caused a huge stir in the army. It was only because of the pressure from above that no one dared to bring it up. But now, because of Wang Chong, all of this was being vented. The officials in the royal court might not understand what Wang Chong had mentioned in the memorial, but to the generals in the military, what Wang Chong had written was exactly what they were thinking. On this point, they were completely on the same side as Wang Chong. In truth, Wang Chong's letter was also fighting for the interests of all the Han generals. If Wang Chong were to be executed by the royal court over this matter, no one would be able to accept it. The development of this matter had exceeded everyone's expectations. The Bureau of Military Personnel, Bureau of Punishments, the imperial censors, the entire royal court was in chaos. Now that things had developed to this point, it was no longer something that a single person could handle. Memorials in support of Wang Chong flew in from all directions to the royal court. At the same time, memorials requesting for Wang Chong's death to uphold the dignity of the Hu were also being sent to the royal court. Now that things had developed to this point, it was no longer something that anyone could stop. Even the likes of Geshu Han, Gao Xianji, and Fomin Linta could no longer restrain them. This matter concerned the interests of the entire Hu. In the 200-odd years since the founding of the Tang dynasty, this was the first time that the Hu and the Han were at loggerheads in the royal court. Neither side was willing to give in to the other. South of Western Shu's Swords Gate, rain continued to fall. Amidst the rain, oil fires blazed fiercely. A massive army of 800 li was densely packed in the undulating mountains. In the middle of the army, there was a huge mansion. Above it, there were 5 words written in golden letters, Annan Protectorate Manor. Every single word was as heavy as Mount Tai. The Tang dynasty had 10 protectorate generals, and while most of the influential armies were in the hands of the Hu, not all of the elites were in the hands of the Hu. In the Tang dynasty, just south of Western Shu's Swords Gate, there were 180,000 soldiers stationed. They were responsible for suppressing Mengshi Zhao and the Uzan Empire that was threatening to invade the southern highlands. In the Tang dynasty, the Annan Protectorate Manor could be considered as keeping a low profile. As battles weren't as frequent, and there weren't as many reports of victory to report, the Annan Protectorate Manor didn't have much presence in the royal court. However, this didn't mean that the 180,000 soldiers were worthless. An Anxi Protectorate Manor, a Qixi Protectorate Manor, and a Big Dipper Army Vice Commander. Do they really think that the Tang dynasty only has these few? Within the massive protectorate headquarters, a middle-aged man dressed in black heavy armor was seated cross-legged on the ground. In front of him was a chopping board cast from iron. The fire was roaring, and a middle-aged man dressed in black heavy armor sat cross-legged on the ground. On the chopping board was the latest intelligence from the royal court. "Marshal, we have always kept a low profile and bided our time. Shouldn't we not get involved in the matters of the royal court this time around?" Next to the middle-aged, short-haired man, a smart-looking advisor with a mustache said worriedly. He was the advisor of the Annan Protectorate Manor, as well as the military advisor of the Annan Protectorate Manor. Having worked together for more than 30 years, he knew his marshal well. As soon as the middle-aged man spoke, he knew that his marshal was about to get involved in this matter. "We won't be able to gain anything from this. Instead, we'll attract the attention of the Anxi Protectorate Manor, Qixi Protectorate Manor, the Big Dipper Army Vice Commander, and all of the Hu. I beseech Marshal to reconsider," the mustached advisor said uneasily. The storm in the royal court was simply too huge, so huge that he was feeling uneasy. He didn't think that it was a wise decision to get involved in this matter. And you still understand. There are things that a man should do and not do. It's right for us to keep a low profile and avoid trouble. However, this matter is different. Haven't you noticed? At this moment, anyone who dares to stay out of this matter will become everyone's enemy. Xianxia Jianqiong chuckled. There was a sharpness in his eyes that belied his appearance. Xianxia was a compound surname. Even though it sounded like a Hu, Xianxia Jianqiong was a Han through and through. Xianxia was a later surname, just like Chao, which didn't exist in the original 100 family surnames. But regardless of whether it was a compound or a compound surname, Xianxia Jianqiong was undoubtedly a Han, and he was the powerful southern protector general of the Tang dynasty. His standing wasn't beneath that of Anxi's Gao Xianji, Qixi's Fomen Linta, or the Big Dipper Army's Geshu Han. Do you still not understand the meaning behind the joint name of the 100 family generals? Yi? And this is no longer a matter of Wang Chang's life or death. Rather, it is a conflict of interests between the Han and Hu. Whoever dares to play tricks and stay out of this matter will lose their standing in the military. And your scheme isn't bad, but you're still lacking in the grand scheme of things. Xianxia Jianqiong said calmly. Unknowingly, an imposing aura that felt as vast as the mountains and the sea flowed out from his body, distorting even the flames and space in the hall. The military advisor, whom Xianxia Jianqiong addressed as Yi, was taken aback. For a moment, he was speechless, and a contemplative look appeared on his face. Xianxia Jianqiong chuckled, but he didn't say anything. In his mind, he recalled the young man he had met in the capital. Just what kind of young man could have the courage to write such an incisive memorial? Did Duke Jiu teach him? Xianxia shook his head. Given Duke Jiu's personality, he would never stoop to such a thing. Could it be Wang Zhen? That person from the Wang clan wielded great authority in the royal court. If it wasn't Duke Jiu, it was most likely to be him. But did Wang Zhen have the courage to do so? Xianxia shook his head once more. He had met Wang Zhen a few times in his younger days. Lord Wang was definitely a far-sighted person, and his political acumen was formidable. But it was precisely for this reason that he found it even more difficult to write such a memorial. If even he couldn't write such a spirited memorial, how could he possibly teach his nephew? At this point, Xianxia couldn't help but sigh deeply. He had roughly understood the truth. To think that our Tang dynasty would have such a valiant figure. So what if I, Xianxia, put down my principles and support you? Xianxia Jianqiong sighed deeply as he stretched out his right hand. Bring me my brush. I'll be writing this memorial myself. Walala. Chapter 168. Xianxia Jianqiong wasn't the only one paying attention to the affairs of the royal court. While Xianxia Jianqiong's great kite was flying toward the capital, in a massive tent in the northeast of the Tang dynasty, golden cups, silver bowls, and tiger pelts were placed on the floor. In the tent, an energetic figure in his 40s was chuckling heartily as he feasted on meat and wine. He exuded a ferocious and intimidating aura. Ziyi, have you seen the documents on the table? These are the signatures of 100 generals. They are all pleading for me, the great general who supports the empire, the Eastern Protector General, the founding Duke of Southern Sun Commandery. The armors of the people in the tent vibrated and their long hair danced in the wind. They were clearly in a good mood. Is Marshal really going to interfere in this matter? Back then, a single sentence from Duke Jiao delayed Marshal for nearly 20 years at the border. Not too far away, separated by a basin of charcoal, a scholarly middle-aged Confucian general was sitting cross-legged. His mustache drooped down from his lips, giving off the impression of a modest gentleman. He was Zhang Shougui's lifelong friend, Wu Ziyi, who had gone through life and death with him. The two of them had joined the army together. From the Tang dynasty's Longxi garrison to Guazhou to the current Eastern Protector General, intimidating the Shi tribe, Khitans, and even the distant Turks, the two of them had always been the best partners, and they were best friends who had transcended life and death. Right now, the Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, who had risen to fame in the imperial court and was known as the 7 Stars of the Big Dipper, Geshu brings his saber at night, was only plowing the land he had once plowed. In terms of experience, Geshu Han was just a junior. Before an elder like Zhang Shougui, he had nothing to show off. There weren't many valiant generals in the Tang dynasty, and there were even fewer who could suppress Geshu Han. However, Zhang Shougui was definitely one of them. This was also the reason why so many conferred generals' documents were flying toward the protectorate of the Northeast. In the Tang dynasty, there were only a few generals who could stand against the powerful who like Gao Xianji, Fomin Linta, Geshu Han, and Insishun. Grand General who supports the nation, Zhang Shougui, was definitely one of the best. As for conferred generals, while their status was higher than that of ordinary generals, they were still lacking in terms of weight. Zhang Jiuling took advantage of his seniority and ruined my path to becoming a minister. How could I not remember that? Hearing Wu Ziyi's words, Zhang Shougui's face darkened. Zhang Shougui knew that Wu Ziyi was talking about the past events of the Holy Emperor 23 years ago. At the time, Zhang Shougui had just arrived in Yuzhou, and he had dealt a heavy blow to the Khitan tribes that were at the height of their power and threatening Yuzhou and the Tang dynasty to the northeast. Coupled with Long You's many defeats of Uzun, Zhang Shougui's reputation was like the sun in the sky, and there was even a rumor that he was the Minister of Desire. Alas, Wang Jiuling believed that Zhang Shougui was truly too young and immature. Although he was used to war, he might not be able to take on the role of prime minister and manage the imperial court. Thus, when the Holy Emperor asked, he was rejected by Wang Chang's grandfather, Wang Jiuling. He said, "Shougui has just defeated the Khitans, and your majesty is already the prime minister. If we were to destroy the Shi and the Turks, how would your majesty reward us?" This directly shattered Zhang Shougui's dream of becoming prime minister. If not for this, Zhang Shougui might have become the youngest prime minister in the history of the Tang dynasty. The hatred in Zhang Shougui's heart was unimaginable. However, even though that Wang clan brat isn't worth saving, that fellow Fomin Linta is even more despicable. Could it be that with so many people pleading for me to make a move, I can humiliate that person from the Wang clan and crush that fellow Fomin Linta's reputation? What's there to be against it? Zhang Shougui suddenly burst into laughter. Wang Jiuling was known as Duke Jiao, and he was highly respected in the imperial court. Although Zhang Shougui was displeased that Wang Jiuling had foiled his plans back then, he couldn't deal with such a person as forcefully as he did on the battlefield. Saving his grandson was the best way to humiliate him. As for Fomin Linta, there were few in the Tang dynasty who could compare to Zhang Shougui in terms of seniority, and Fomin Linta was definitely one of them. Back then, when Zhang Shougui wasn't the Anong Protector General, and he was still fighting against Uzun in Longyu, Guazhou, Qixi, and Anxi intersected, and the two of them didn't come into conflict. This time, Fomin Linta was making a huge fuss, and Zhang Shougui couldn't stand it anymore. Compared to the prospect of teaching Fomin Linta a lesson, saving Duke Jiao's grandson, Wang Chong, wasn't a big deal. However, given the current situation, the Hu and Han generals are at odds with one another in the royal court because of that child. We are in Yuzhou, and unlike the Han generals in other places, we have many Hu generals and soldiers under us. If we were to interfere recklessly, I'm afraid that our subordinates might start a rebellion, and that would be disadvantageous to us." Wu Zi frowned and said worriedly. The more he knew about the happenings in the royal court, the more worried he was. Given the current situation, it wasn't wise for them to interfere recklessly. Unexpectedly, when Wu Zi's words fell into Zhang Shougui's ears, he burst into laughter. "Ah, Zi, why are you learning from those people in the royal court? What Han and Hu generals, what fools. In my Yuzhou, before me, Zhang Shougui, there are no Hu or Han. There are only those who obey me and those who don't. Horse, what do you think?" Zhang Shougui suddenly turned his head around, and his eyes were as sharp as lightning. Not too far away, he saw a plump Hu in his early 20s eating grass on the ground. Under Zhang Shougui's gaze, the plump Hu trembled, and cold sweat dripped down his forehead. Fear was written all over his face. "Commander is right. We the Hu are horses. How can horses compare to you? Fomen Linta, Gao Xinji, and the others are the same as me. We are horses, horses." As he spoke, he stuck out his bottom and chewed on the grass in his mouth. He mimicked horse neighs neighing and fawning. "Ha!" Seeing the fawning look on the Hu, Zhang Shougui burst into laughter. Even Wu Zi couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of it. "Those who obey me can live, and those who don't will die." Zhang Shougui laughed. He suddenly whipped out a token from his waist and threw it out of the tent. Outside the tent, a cold gale blew. More than 100 bound Shi, Khitan, and Turkic who stood amidst the bone-chilling wind. Behind them were more than 100 executioners. "Kill!" Their heads fell to the ground, and fresh blood spurted out. The 100 Shi, Khitan, and Turkic who fell to the ground like wooden pillars. They struggled for a moment before coming to a stop. Soon, armored soldiers came over and dragged their corpses away. They threw them into a ditch and buried them. The thick stench of blood wafted through the rain. Here, the grass on the ground was red. To the east of the Tang dynasty, to the east of Yuzhou, Zhang Shougui was an existence that could stop a child from crying. Just as he had said, in Yuzhou, in front of Zhang Shougui, there were no Hu, no Han. There were only those who obeyed and those who disobeyed. Those who obeyed would live, and those who disobeyed would die. The tent was torn apart, and that Hu who had been pretending to be a horse and sucking up to Wang Chong flew out like a white meatball. "Bring Ashina along? Come on, we 2 hunters, let's get to work together. If we don't capture 200 Shi and Khitan Hu today, 2 more people will be sleeping in that ditch. Don't think about escaping. You should know that you won't be able to." That ice-cold voice was even more bone-chilling than the chilly wind. Almost as the 2 who scrambled out of Zhang Shougui's tent, a crow shot out of the tent like an arrow, flying against the clouds toward the Tang dynasty's capital. Grand General assisting the nation Zhang Shougui, Anong Protector General. When Zhang Shougui's name appeared in the imperial court, he would become the most important bargaining chip for the Han generals. In the military world of the Tang dynasty, Zhang Shougui was a figure of great stature, one of the 2 legendary existences of the Central Plains in the generation of the current Holy Emperor. However, there was another person in the military world who was even more important than Zhang Shougui, with even more illustrious achievements. When Yozhou's Protector General, Anong Protector General Zhang Shougui's memorial appeared in the imperial court, countless people immediately turned to this Han military leader. To the east of the Tang dynasty's imperial palace, in the Crown Prince's imperial Tudor residence on Green Dragon Street, a square-faced, dignified, and resolute middle-aged man sat by the bedside, his brow furrowed. Although he didn't exude the slightest aura, the middle-aged man exuded the aura of someone who wielded supreme authority over the entire world. His every action, though casual, exuded an intimidating and respectful aura. In front of this middle-aged man, everyone could not help but lower their heads, not even daring to look him in the eye. They naturally felt a sense of respect. This person was the Crown Prince's imperial tutor, Wang Zhongxi. In the Tang dynasty, there were few people who could surpass the likes of Zhang Shougui, Fomen Linta, Gao Xianji, Geshu Han, and Insishun. Wang Zhongxi was definitely someone who could do this. The reason was simple. The current vice commander of the Big Dipper Army, Big Dipper Great General Geshu Han, had been groomed by him. Wang Zhongxi didn't hold any illustrious position in the military. In fact, he had already relinquished his military authority, and he only held the title of the Crown Prince's imperial tutor. But in terms of the positions he had held, there was no one in the entire Tang dynasty who could match up to him. Daizhou Governor, Imperial Censor, Hedong Military Commander, Yunhui General, Zhuiyulin General, and even the Northern Protector General, Qixi Protector General, Eastern Protector General, Southern Protector General. He had held all of these positions. In terms of achievements, there was no one in the entire Tang dynasty who could match up to him. When he was the Eastern Protector General, he defeated the Shi and the Khitans. When he was the Northern Protector General, he swept through the Eastern and Western Turkic Khaganates, defeating them and winning 20 years of peace. When he was in Longyu, he fought his way up to the Uzun Plateau, forcing even the monks of the Great Snowy Mountain to deal with him. In Wang Zhongxi's life, other than the western region's Suiye city, he had fought every single opponent he could lay his hands on. However, he was different from the other generals. Wang Zhongxi had never been a utilitarian. In every single battle, he would bring his military authority with him and return with it. On the battlefield, he was an invincible marshal, but when he would return as a nameless figure, carrying only the title of the Crown Prince's imperial tutor. Furthermore, unlike the other generals, Wang Zhongxi was compassionate towards his soldiers. Even though he had contributed greatly to the war, he wasn't willing to start one. Thus, throughout his life, Wang Zhongxi tried his best not to start a war. At the same time, Wang Zhongxi was more than willing to leave the opportunity to gain fame and experience to the younger generation. This was also the reason why he was respected in the royal court. More importantly, even though Wang Zhongxi had made so many contributions and defeated so many opponents, he was still only 50 years old. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.